Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back. I just wanted to jump on and actually just wish you all a Merry Christmas for those of you that celebrate Christmas at this time of the year. Also, I wanted to say Happy Solstice. I hope that all of you had an opportunity to, experience some family time, some relaxing time. Some people might have had some traditions or rituals that they engage in during the solstice. Even if you don't do anything specific, such as a particular ritual, it's just a really lovely time to, I feel, just to appreciate actually and just give gratitude, to divine source creation, to all things actually. The sun ingressing into Capricorn and the whole solstice period is such a sacred portal that opens up for all of us, and it's a reminder of life being having the dual nature that it does around darkness and light, and that it's never one way or the other. It's always a continuum. Things we have darker experiences or dark days and dark night of the soul, all that sort of stuff, and then there's a rebirth, and the light is reborn, and that's the most beautiful sort of reflection of the Christ consciousness as well. So it is a really beautiful time of the year to really reflect on all of these things. And actually, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the last week of December, which is what we are in now, because it's quite an eventful time of the year, even though it should probably be more about relaxing and withdrawing a little bit and taking some time out from everything, really, regardless of what's going on in our life, whether we are working or not or otherwise. It's just a nice time to really center our heart and anchor into the light, right? And give gratitude and appreciation for all things. That the energies that are closing the last week of December in 2021 are incredibly intense, so they're not lightweight energies, and they are carrying through a number of different levels of things that have been playing out for quite some time, particularly the Saturn-Uranus square aspect, which we have had all year. And the final one occurs literally pretty much now. So, Saturn Uranus has been just mind-boggling to observe in terms of the manifestation of that through the collective soul family and everything that it has shown us, and what has transpired through people's beliefs, actions, thoughts, resistances, etc. I really like this particular comment here. I'm going to read a couple of comments out of this book, but this last comment that he makes in one of the paragraphs, I think this is important to reflect on when you are thinking about the Saturn-Uranus energy, and given that we are at the end of it. And just bear in mind, this Saturn-Uranus square is also the last quarter square, right? And I've talked about this in previous videos, so please watch that if you want to hear an in-depth exploration into the meaning of a last quarter square, specifically relating to Uranus and Saturn. But it is important to bring that into context now, because the last quarter square has so much to do with the reorientation of our thinking. And it's pretty interesting because we have this, we have a lot of these different layers being projected out onto the earth plane with everything that's been going on for the last couple of years. And there are very powerful movements that have been born out of these very difficult circumstances that we have all been subject to in one way or another. But I think the most common thing that has been fairly equally distributed is the restrictions. And whilst on a psychological personality level, that's, you know, it's upset a lot of people, it's pissed us off, it's been frustrating, you know, etc., etc. When we are able to reflect on that in a non-selfish way and see it as a bigger picture, transformative, evolutionary process, it's really forced humanity basically to go back inside themselves and reorient their thinking about everything, about life, about themselves, about what life means to them, about what they have been dedicating themselves to. You know, what are you putting your love into, your energy into? Where are your values placed? You know, we've had to, all of us as a collective family, as in a sense of togetherness, right? Doing that together. And I know there's a lot of division, but I'm not going to go into that today. But as a human family, I think this is just a very powerful portal to invite us into remembering that we are all actually one, really, as cliche as that may sound. We are, in terms of spirit and soul and essence, we truly are, although we are also incredibly unique as well relative to our own soul's evolutionary path. But we all derive from the same source, and we will all return to that same source. And in evolutionary astrology, you know, one of the sort of pinnacle, if you like, teachings in evolutionary astrology is the reminder that Pluto corresponds to the soul, and we take on, you know, the personality, the human body, in order to have, you know, very specific experiences. And the body and the personality is kind of like the veil of the soul, right? So the soul needs a vehicle to express itself through, right? So there is no, in truth, although Saturn really makes us feel that there's this sense of time, which we refer to as linear time, and linear time only applies to the third dimension reality from a very specific level, which we are very aware of simply by day and night and, you know, the hours on the clock, etc., etc. But that's just a linear perspective of this third dimension reality in terms of time. Time in terms of the soul is eternal, and soul time is completely different to physical time. And that's an important point, because even with regards to, for instance, times of birth, and this is one thing that a lot of people either don't know or don't understand, but I have done a video on this, and whilst I'm digressing, it is an important point. When we are born, even though we might be born at, say, 12:15 a.m., and say that was documented by a nurse or your mother, your father, or whoever else was there, it's not always necessarily the case that your karma, as it were, your soul's time, clicked off at 12:15. Your soul's time could have started 12 o'clock, could have started 5-10 minutes before midday or midnight, right? So there's this thing about soul time that cannot be measured in physical time, and it's a really right brain perspective or understanding or understanding when you start thinking about it like that. But when you really deeply reflect on that, it makes a lot of sense, because the soul is eternal. And so two points I was trying to make there, that is from an evolutionary perspective, our soul is on this infinite journey of evolution, and it is said in evolutionary astrology that we are born, and every time we are born, you know, we take on the ego, the personality, the body, and we have all these separating, what are called separating desires, which are just a way of saying we desire to experience a variety of different things. That can be love, beauty, believe it or not, that can be pain, suffering. It can be a number of different things. No soul comes in a sort of one stream way and just wanting to experience the one thing and that's it. There's so many complex layers to the soul's desires and what it intends to actually experience. So one thing is that the soul is eternal. Saturn reminds us that there is such a thing as time in the physical body and in the physical world. And the trap of Saturn can be that we feel we are running out of time, but in truth, we never run out of time, because time only exists on the third dimension game of things, right? So this Saturn square Uranus has been a very well, I don't know what word to use. It's been a very interesting frequency on the earth plane, which has manifested in a multitude of ways. But here's the comment that I wanted to read, which is more of a reflective sort of statement or comment to contemplate, to consider in your own private personal thinking. The Uranus archetype helps people to face and work through leftover pain, including trauma from the birth process or other memories of having been hurt in their lives. Now, I would take that a step further, and I would say that it also corresponds to past life traumas, which is what is understood in evolutionary astrology through the lens of Uranus. Uranus corresponds to trauma, and that includes traumas from any different lifetime or a multitude of lifetimes that we've had, which is why when we are born and come into this life, we don't come in with this clear slate, as it were. We have things that we are working on, right? Which is all very much unconscious, and that's why it can be very challenging at times to make sense of either our own life or other people's lives that we may be observing. Things are not, I don't think a person's life, the soul's life and pathway and evolution can be understood by linear time and by the left brain. If we approach it from that level, we certainly will not understand the depths of the soul, the power of the soul, the infinity of the soul, and the divine source creation to all things, of which we derive from. So I'll just continue with this comment. Saturn reminds them of the utmost importance of lying down. So that's let me just start it again. The Uranus archetype helps people to face and work through leftover pain, including trauma from the birth process or other memories of being hurt in their lives. Saturn reminds them of the utmost importance of lying down and facing their emerging process until it is completed. Sessions may alternate quickly between states of Saturnian pressure and Uranian breakthrough, with an overall liberating effect. Now, that's a beautiful summary just to describe the energies of Uranus and Saturn, and in a nutshell, what the world has been experiencing for the last, certainly over 2021, at a much more intensified level. We know this whole thing started in 2020 or even late 2019, but certainly 2021 has been an explosive year on so many different levels. The other thing is as well, and perhaps I'll just bring up the chart just so that we can get some visuals going. Okay, up there. All right, so let's just bring up. So this is just a transit chart for today, actually. So it's basically, virtually solstice energy still. And you can see that there by the sun at 0 degrees of Capricorn, right? So a couple of things that I want to just touch on briefly, and some things I've already sort of mentioned in other videos and just sort of touched on briefly now. But the thing is this, right? So we've got the solstice, okay. There's Venus. She just went retrograde, right? And she's conjunct Pluto. But as like tomorrow, for example, or not tomorrow, but it'll be Christmas Day, actually, Venus will be exactly conjunct Pluto. She'll be at 25. So she's moving incredibly slowly at the moment because she only stopped to go retrograde just a few days ago, right? So I've spoken fairly extensively about the Pluto Venus, so I'm not going to go into that necessarily in any great detail at the moment, but it is worth considering that as part of the picture, as part of the bigger picture in closing 2021 and in just spending these few days while we close the month of December of 2021, deeply reflecting on how we have grown, what we have learnt, um, what has changed for us, um, where have we invested love, have we been able to be more in touch with our soul, our heart center? Have we been just completely bombarded and distracted by the continuous narrative of um, the North Node in Gemini, which we are, coming to a close to as well, right? Just this overload of consistent information, a lot of which is just verbal diarrhea. At a positive, it's also enabled us to be extremely curious and ask a lot of questions, and that's been a very important process for all of us, especially this year, because of the immense fabrication, deception, confusion, and things of that nature. We've had to really inquire ourselves and really ask a lot of questions. I think that's been really important. But I guess, just in summary, just closing up, the last week of December is really interesting. We've got the Venus conjunct Pluto retrograde thing going on. That's such a deep shamanic process and journey that is seeing us through, the end of the year, and is really a journey until we could say March of next year, because Venus is going to be in the sign of Capricorn until March, right? It's a really long time. She entered Capricorn in November. So there's a very important takeaway with Venus's retrograde process in the archetype of Capricorn, and the fact that she formed the conjunction to Pluto just as she went retrograde. There's such a powerful calling to a process of death and rebirth, as much as we might hear that over and over and over again, we'll continue to hear that over and over again, because it is part and parcel of life. Life itself actually isn't death and rebirth as such. Death and rebirth is the various experiences that we have within this experience of life. But life itself doesn't actually have an opposite. We frequently hear that, when we use the word life, people will often say, well, what's the opposite to life? And people will say death. But the truth of the matter is that life has no opposite. Life is life. Everything is life. Everything is breathing and moving and in motion. And not just here on the 3D earth plane. Life exists in so many dimensions. Life is life. Life has no beginning and no end. It has no opposite. It's more like death birth, that we could say that there's this dual polarized sort of experience, if you like. And even that itself is not really a death, because it's actually a transition, isn't it? So this whole experience of the past couple of years, we've all undergone, a lot of different deaths within ourself, within our ego, our shadow, discovering new strengths, discovering new values, discovering, connecting to, new people, new tribes. There's so much beauty and love that has come out of this, what appears to be a really complex and difficult and challenging and dark sort of phase in the world. And it has been all that. I'm not saying it hasn't, but it also has been incredibly beautiful, particularly from the point of view of going deeper into our own heart and soul. And the Venus Pluto conjunction and Venus retrograde is just taking us deeper into that kind of experience. And it is in Capricorn, and so it is a Venus star point. And so it does have a lot to do with I would incorporate the Cancer archetype here, and I would say the polarity of Capricorn Cancer, which is, it's really so much to do with inner security and external security, but even more so at a deeper level, it has got to do with the inner soul, right? And tending to the inner soul and nurturing that and looking after it just as you would your beautiful garden outside, right? And the Capricorn exterior level of that, I suppose, helping us transform with Pluto there into a reality, Capricorn, Saturn energy, that's very, very different to the reality that we perceived previously. That's an undeniable factor, I think, in everyone's life, regardless of our beliefs, regardless of which position we take on this narrative that's been playing out for quite some time. It doesn't, that none of that even matters, because there are bigger things going on and bigger things unfolding, and everything will actually be okay in the end. And if it's not the end, it's not over. Okay, so when we actually move forward, and just another thing, Chiron recently went retrograde, as I think I mentioned in the previous video, and I won't unpack that today necessarily in depth. I'll come back in the new year and do something on that. But I think that's an important component of the transits, the planets moving, just to consider that in the closing of December of 2021, Chiron moving direct, enabling us to, I just want to feel that for a moment. I think it's going to help us connect to a greater sense of courage and the ability to work with autonomy, freedom, Aries, independence, Aries, courage, Aries, in our life externally moving forward, because Chiron is direct. Now, there's a lot to say about that, and I'll come back, but I just think that's an important part of the last week of December, to consider that in your final sort of winding down, of Christmas, and there'll be New Year's, and which, by the way, the true New Year is, of course, the 21st of March, right? So the New Year that we're going to experience in a few days' time is a calendar, man-made New Year. But the true New Year is actually 21st of March, and that's certainly when I celebrate it. Okay. And just for those of you that don't know, that's based on the tropical zodiac. When the sun gets to 0 degrees of Aries, that's actually the beginning of the year. That's when the zodiac begins, 0 degrees of Aries, and that's on the 21st of March every year. So just winding it up now. I really just wanted to come on and say, hey, Merry Christmas, but here I am going into astrology. Okay. So there's Venus at the 25th degree, so it begins on Christmas Day. So that's a pretty interesting Christmas Day energy. I guess it's going to depend on who you are with, and sometimes, during the holiday seasons, well, not sometimes, it's fairly typical actually, people get together, families and things like that, who normally don't spend a lot of time together, but Christmas seems to bring people together. And honestly, sometimes that's fairly disastrous, right? Because If there's underlying difficulties between families and relationships and so forth, well, Christmas isn't going to suddenly, you know, banish the underlying currency of things that are going on. So, yeah, I guess it's just probably important to keep in mind that there's a Venus Pluto conjunction there on Christmas Day. But, oh, my mic has just, I really need to sort this out. I was a bit lazy. I could have fixed this before I came on, but I wasn't lazy. I actually just forgot. I think there's going to be quite an intense undertone, regardless of where you are. And it won't be as loud, I don't think. I think there'll be more of a invitation to be more reflective, which I think is a good thing, right? Yeah, but Christmas Day is an interesting one. Christmas Day is quite a difficult one for me because I used to spend it with my dad. Yep. That just brought up some emotions, so I need to move on from that. I just wanted to go towards the 29th. Here it is. Here's what I wanted to show. So the moon's in Scorpio. How's that for really releasing everything that's sort of been cultivated, over the last 12 months, everything that we have worked on, cultivated, confronted, transformed, struggled with, whatever it's been. It's the moon in Scorpio is really sort of allowing us to shed some weight of whatever we've been carrying that's been quite difficult, right? That's how I see that moon in Scorpio. It's a real okay, let's just clean the shit out. Just let go of stuff. Let go as much as you can. Just release, clear it all up, and just prepare for a beautiful new year, right? Even though it's not the true new year in January, but let's just say that some people take the new year from that time, and that's okay. I'm not saying you shouldn't or you can't. And there's a new moon in Capricorn very early in January, just literally just a couple of days after New Year's Eve. So I'm hoping I'm going to be able to come back and talk about that. That's quite an interesting new moon. So here's what I wanted to point to on the 29th, 30th of December, there's a Venus-Mercury-Pluto triple conjunction. Of course, that's only there for a couple of days. So I see that as a really powerful message from Hermes, Mercury. Well, Hermes, Mercury is the messenger, right? He's the god of communication, and we tend to forget actually how magical Mercury really is, and how smart he is, right? Think about part of his myth when he was a small child, and he stole some golden sheep or whatever it was, and well, first of all, he made an instrument called a lyre. Which sounds like the word liar, right? When he was an infant, he was just so talented. He was so smart. And, he stole those golden sheep and he covered his tracks by walking backwards. That's Mercury retrograde. So, and Jupiter didn't punish him, even though he lied and he stole things. Normally the gods would get really severely punished by Jupiter, right? When they were caught committing those sorts of acts, right? But because of Mercury's extreme level of intelligence, Jupiter was just so impressed by him that he didn't actually punish him for his deeds, right? So anyway, I just think that's a lovely kind of reminder of just how brilliant, Mercury is actually. We often forget that. And Mercury is the god that travels between all worlds. That's why he's the god of the messenger, right? Because he would He had access to all realms, and he was the one that would take the messages, you know, to the living and to the dead and to the in between and this and that and the other. That's why he's the god of the messenger, right? So here he is, right there with Pluto, right there with Venus, and he comes into this energy that Venus and Pluto began together days before this, and Venus is retrograde, so she's going into the underworld anyway, and she's there with Pluto, which is the underworld. So Mercury is there with them together, and I feel and believe very intuitively and instinctively that those few days are incredibly powerful for what we can receive through Mercury at that time, connecting to the Venus Pluto cycle, right? The Venus retrograde cycle. So just something to consider. I looked at that today, and it really it struck me as something that, yeah, this is really important, and so I really wanted to share that as well. Also on this day, or just the day before, or on this day, but in the early hours of the morning, so say 29th of December for you guys in the Northern Hemisphere, Jupiter goes back into Pisces. And so this is wonderful, actually. This is the funny thing is that Jupiter is going to zoom through Pisces, which is a bit of a ripoff because Pisces is its own home sign. It's one of the most spectacular, beautiful places for Jupiter to be in. And it's going to zoom past pretty quickly. Whereas we've had it in Aquarius, you know, for a long time, right? Anyway, look, I will come back and touch on that because, of course, we have, I just want to show you. When does that come up? Let me just see. Just bear with me. Okay, you can see what I'm looking for, right? If you're into astrology, you would have spotted it already. This is what I want to come back and talk about. Venus, Jupiter, Neptune, that conjunction. Wow. I have so much to say about this, and I'll break it down to the apparent physical, external, and more so the mystical, the spiritual, and the dream experiences, the dream world. That is the most beautiful triple conjunction. That does not occur very often. I've just forgotten the last time it occurred. It was a long time ago, though, I can tell you that much. It was a long time ago. Think about it. Let me see. Pisces is, well, I'll look that up before I come and speak about this. I've just forgotten, but it is quite a while ago. That is all over my Venus. My Venus is 25 of Pisces, so I'm really intrigued with what that will bring. And it's not so much about the external stuff. The external stuff I always appreciate. I'm always grateful. But the things that touch me the most are the things that touch my heart and soul. Always, always. Even if it's deeply painful, even if it's deeply joyous, you know, because there is always deep pain and deep joy in this experience called life, right? And we can't evade that. We try to, but we can't. And we don't, once we start to realize that there is no such thing as an end, you know, that we are these divine souls that are infinite, just having these crazy and beautiful, insane experiences, it really helps us be more objective, more detached, and more appreciative even of the painful things, the things that are so deeply painful, right? That we all endure at some point, right? Anyway, I want to come back and talk about that. So that's 30th of April. So we've got plenty of time. Let me see. And as you can see there, Jupiter is not far off completing his journey in Pisces, right? And so that's only what, 4 months. And that's because Jupiter ingressed into Pisces for a short time earlier this year, but it wasn't for very long. So anyway, that whole process that happened has sort of cut Jupiter's journey short, as it's going to feel to us, because really it's the Jupiter in Pisces and staying in Pisces and not being retrograde and just proceeding through Pisces. That's only for 4 months, whereas normally Jupiter spends 1 year, in one sign, right? So I would say for the next 4 months, dream big. And I'm not just talking about the external goals and dreams of things that you have of what you wish to manifest and create. That's all fine, but dream big from the soul, dream big from the heart, and what's going to water, nurture, and, feed that part of you, right? This is Jupiter in Pisces. It's so beautiful. I absolutely love it. And that triple conjunction is freaking magic. Magic, magic, magic. Can't wait to talk about that. Okay, so I think, yeah, that's pretty much it. Look, I just really wanted to do a very, very quick hello and couple of comments. Yeah, Saturn, Uranus. Whew, yeah, we're at the end of that. So I also discovered the other day that the body or object, which is a dwarf planet actually, called Sedna, is also going to be changing signs in the next couple of years, moving out of Taurus and into Gemini. That's a really big deal because she has an orbit of around about just under 12,000 years, right? So there's massive, massive thing. The Venus star point changing from Scorpio to Libra. The entrance to that is 2022. A few years later, we'll have the Aries star point change into Pisces. Sedna is going to change from Taurus into Gemini. Pluto is going to change into from Capricorn to Aquarius. There's big things going on, and the necessary change is here. It's here now, and yeah, there's so much to say about that, but I will come back. I want to come back and talk about the new moon in Capricorn. All right, so happy solstice. Much love for Christmas. Many blessings. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you so much for all your beautiful love and gratitude and support throughout this year and previous years if you've been with me before that as well. I've really loved interacting with you guys and getting to know you. I'm familiar with so many of you now. I feel like I actually know you. So many of you have come to me for a reading. I've loved working with you on those levels as well. It's such a humble, personal, sacred experience for me when I do a reading. When I do a reading, I put my heart and soul in it and the truth. I'm not interested in not being transparent. I'm transparent but respectful. I'm kind and I'm direct. So my whole goal with the work that I do here with videos on YouTube or my readings is always to share Venus, to inspire Sagittarius, and to give Pisces. So and to connect to the human family, Aquarius, and in the hope and in the aim of something I say, help somebody in some kind of way, even if it's a small thing or a big thing, whatever it is. And so it is a very sacred journey to be on for myself, just sharing the things that I do. Sometimes I feel like, just having a bit of a laugh, and sometimes I feel like pissing myself laughing, but I kind of hold it back. Some things are just very, very funny to me sometimes, but quite often I'm more sort of taken in the moment by what feels like my soul, communicating. I guess if I have somebody sitting with me, or I'm doing an interview, interviewing somebody, or somebody's interviewing me, it's a lot easier then to be more sort of funny and crack jokes and take the piss out of things. But it's a little bit harder to do that on your own, right? So it is nice to share the space with people, other astrologers, which I've done a little bit of that this year, and I'd like to do more of that next year. So if you are an astrologer and you're watching, and you feel that, there is something that we could share together, please feel free to hit me up, send me an email, and we can collaborate. That esoteric soul ray number 2 for me is very interested in uniting everybody through love and wisdom, actually. So yeah, I'll put that invitation out there. And even if you're not an astrologer, but you have some knowledge, some wisdom, which I know there'll be, millions of you out there that do, and you feel that there's something that we could share together, absolutely approach me. I'm very approachable. Don't be shy, and I'm open to many different ideas. So on that note, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and sending you all so much love and blessings and so much gratitude. And thank you for being you. And I'll see you all very soon, probably in about a week or so. Okay, bye for now. Thanks for watching.